All right. Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to our session on the best of Microsoft Ignite 2025. I am Joe Steiner, and Brian Haydin is with us as well, both solution architects here at Concurrency. Brian, you want to?
Give myself a little bit of an intro?
Yeah.
Sure, absolutely. So, Brian Haydin, I'm a solution architect at Concurrency. My background's been mostly in like the software, engineering kind of background, and really super passionate about building things in the Microsoft tech stack. And I'm coming in hot off of big Agent Con from yesterday and
Good event.
absorbing, all the Microsoft Ignite content. So happy to be here, and it's going to be fun. It's going to be fast.
Yes, yes. And to that point, we've got a lot of content to cover, a lot of exciting announcements with Microsoft Ignite this year. So it's going to be pretty rapid fire here. We definitely invite questions. I think Q&A is open, so please post your questions. We'll address the questions at the end, just so we're going to kind of rocket through all the content here. And gladly have conversations following at the end off of the questions, as well as happy to have conversations following this too. Please reach out to us, and glad to dive into this further. So why don't we go ahead and move ourselves along here a little bit. So I think Ignite in a nutshell, a lot of AI work going on there. So AI, which is great, super exciting. A lot of agents everywhere. Copilot's been expanded throughout the Microsoft platforms. Windows, Microsoft 365, Azure, enhancements to security, and so on. I think that's been really exciting to see. I think there's some great enhancements coming there. Brian, you want to talk kind of the IQ layers a little bit, and kind of some of the excitements there?
Yeah, so I think one of the coolest things about the Ignite was this bridging between, M365 and the developer kind of community and bringing it all together. So this IQ layer is a kind of a branding effort. I think there's some
Yeah.
technologies that support it that kind of help, but it really is just a reinforcement of the things that have been evolving over the course of the last 2 years. But there's a lot of stuff going on in the developer community, a lot of stuff that's bringing that low code, pro code community closer together, and then enablement in the M365 stack to take whatever maker artifacts that you're doing and bring it into the ecosystem to help frontline workers.
Yeah, definitely. So I think between the IQ layers, I think Agent 365, and so the agent governance and security aspects with Entra Agent ID, some of the Defender pieces that are coming in there. It's really exciting. It makes the ability to leverage AI throughout the enterprise in a more secure and managed fashion, which is great, all while still enabling you to create in new and exciting ways. Obviously, in the data state, there's a lot of good things happening there too, with SQL Server and Fabric database and some of the new database constructs coming there. So Brian did a great job here of creating kind of like, okay, where do we think different individuals here might want to dive deeper? I don't know, Brian, if you want to kind of drive through this real quick.
Yeah, sure. So, like, if you just think about like different personas, people who are going to be interested in, I probably would look through the list of people here on this call and say you're going to fall into one of these three like personas, either information workers, and so these are the people that we're really looking at, like, how do I use Microsoft Copilot, whether that's the Copilot for the web or your Office Copilot. How do I use agents that are enablement in my teams? So ton of announcements on that side. We've got the builders and the maker, kind of personas. So the low code developers, the pro code developers, some really, really cool announcements coming out of Foundry. People have been talking about MCP, and Some of the things that they talked about around MCP like are pretty wicked cool. We'll get into, and then the Fabric IQ aspect of it, and then the last but not least is the really the management people, keeping your business running, the lights on, the IT folks. There's a lot of tooling in place to help them as well. So we're going to kind of go through it, not necessarily in this particular order, but it's loosely sort of developed like this. So, but definitely these are kind of the core areas where I think a lot of the announcements have really resonated with people.
Absolutely, absolutely. Just kind of things to look out for based on kind of who you are, what your role is, what your interests are, as we go through the rest of these. Brian, you want to give your top 5 things to listen out for as we go through here?
Yeah, obviously, this is just my overview and my perceptions of the most impactful things. We've got slides, and we'll talk into each one of these a little bit deeper. But the way that Microsoft has repositioned the agent framework is pretty awesome. So they've taken a lot of the community feedback. I met with some of the product teams when I was at Microsoft Build this year, and I can actually see some of the feedback. It was all my feedback. They took that, the most important, and incorporated into the new agent framework, and it's going to really simplify things. And so I'm really excited to talk about that. The Fabric IQ, I think, was probably the second most impactful thing for the developer space, the builder space that I care about, and how we're bringing the fabric of all of your different ontologies together to build a more intelligent analytics platform. When we get into that, that's going to be really cool. You're going to talk about something else that's really related to this, but the Foundry control plane, to be able to take some of these more advanced agents that we're building in a pro code environment that haven't really been there's not code behind it, right? We're not building it in Terraform and Python, environments, but some of these agents that were built in the Foundry platform and giving that a real sophisticated control plane for management. I think that was desperately needed. And some of the customers that I'm talking about, how they're really they have a lot of anxiety about the number of agents that are being deployed and the lack of control and the lack of visibility. So that's one that that I was really impressed with. The Azure DocumentDB, I don't want to steal too much about when we get into it, but I was like, boom, you guys nailed it. Here's a database construct that we can start to use that is got a cost benefit, kind of use case that is going to usurp, I believe, Cosmos DB in the long run, and still give you the performance and functionality that you need. And then, like you said, you're going to talk more about the Agent 365, I think, than I will. But what I really like about it is the ability to take the entry agent ID and apply that to the agents and really give the fine granularity, the control, to the developer and to SecOps around what you're going to give that agent access to. So those are my top 5.
Yeah.
What are yours?
Those are exciting. Yeah. So from my side, a couple things that really resonated with me were the Azure and Security Copilot agents. So pre-built agents that they're continuing to expand upon. Security expanded quite a bit here. That had existed already, and they're expanding that out, but also then bringing that over to Azure. So you have ready actionable agents I think will be very beneficial for customers. It can handle a broad variety of actions and tasks in a very simple fashion for administrators in those realms. I think that's really exciting, where you really see actionable, focused AI agents here that can be very beneficial. Also, the ability to have agents in Teams channels. Now, you've had a little bit of this so far, but that's been expanded as now they're tying in the ability to use Model Context Protocol inside of here. So you can have third-party agents readily available inside of Teams channels. For me, the thing I like about that is that one of the things is you're bringing in new technologies is you don't want another place to go all the time. And so, here, if you're in Teams, great, I can interact with agents right from within Teams and have it as a little more natural workflow as I'm bringing that extra power into to what I'm doing every day. Tied with that then is the broad model context protocol support. You're going to hear this as we go through all these, throughout the platform in many, many different ways. It's really exciting because here you now have ability to have interoperability between different agents, between non-agents, and a lot of flexibility in what can happen ultimately in creating these this broader AI structure within companies. I personally liked the extension of Purview to tie in with Agent 365, again, providing the additional controls, which makes AI more palatable for some organizations that are a little concerned about what's going to be surfaced there. This provides that additional layer of control that was needed there, and really some exciting things there. And then finally, non-AI related. I thought that there's some kind of hidden in all this. There's some great Windows 365 and AVD improvements, Azure Virtual Desktop improvements there, which really extends the use cases for that tooling in new ways, allowing it to be used in different scenarios that maybe wouldn't have made sense economically as much before, but could be beneficial. Now, I think there's some constructs there that'll make that even easier to be adopted. So. With that, let's start diving in. Again, this is going to be fast. We're going to go probably about a minute a slide and plow through this. So first area is the everyday AI assistance with Copilot agents. They've expanded Copilot out, and we're going to talk Windows, Office, Edge, Teams. We're going to talk about the agent dashboard, which is really cool, and then Work IQ a little bit, and then the sales development agent. So here we go. So first, let's start with agents on the taskbar. The best way to, be able to use Copilot is directly from within Windows where you're at, being able to ask, Copilot and have the Ask Copilot right on the dashboard, on the taskbar. Be able to have other agents there too. So if I have other agents I want to expose right there, the ability to do that. I think the Hey Copilot voice control is very cool. So now I can interact with Copilot in a more natural way. They've made some enhancements to the voice controls on there. They also are bringing Copilot into File Explorer, again, using Model Context Protocol in the back end of that, which will also add some immediate benefits there where I can ask for files and that, and it's going to be readily available for me right where I'm at when I'm looking for it. Agents and agent mode in Office. Some of this has been out already. So Word and Excel have had have had agent mode already. The agent mode's being brought to PowerPoint now. So now I can go in an iterative fashion and say, okay, hey, make this change to this slide, add this, create this graphic in here, put this in here, and be able to talk with Copilot and have it take instructions and create PowerPoint presentations for me and do those things and just tell it what I want to have happen and then work with it from there. Again, just using words, which is so powerful, and I think people see the immediate benefits from. In Edge, they're starting to incorporate agents onto, kind of I open a new tab. We'll have some, personalized Copilot prompts that'll be tied in there. I can actually have in the search, I can do a web search or start a conversation with Copilot right there. So very, again, just surfacing Copilot wherever I'm working. And I think very, very impactful, easy to use. Well, the cool part there is the now agent mode in Edge, where you see here, I've got a quick video on, I can go into, let's say I've pulled up my timesheet. I can go in there and say, hey, fill out my timesheet for, I worked every day, go ahead and fill this in. And so it'll go ahead and populate that for me. So now as I'm interacting with websites, I can have Copilot, again, take instruction, do data entry for me. A host of other things will be possible with that. So again, very, very cool that way. Again, agents and teams channels, one of my top 5 ones. Being able to support third-party agents and teams, again, using MCP servers. So now I can have agents that exist outside of there and be able to interact with them along with the rest of my channel or chat conversations, and be able to ask questions of the agent just as another individual. Again, kind of plays into the idea of treating agents as another worker throughout the enterprise. So I think very, very cool. Makes it again easy to use, and starts surfacing those in better ways. Now, with having all these agents everywhere, one of the things that came out was the agent dashboard. This will you see it here as part of Viva Insights. Here it provides a centralized report on agent usage and adoption. So IT leadership teams can use this and say, okay, who's using AI more than others? What are they using? And be able to provide some kind of a view for the enterprise on where is AI and agents being leveraged across the organization as a whole. Voice control here too, just that kind of more natural interaction where I can say, okay, I can talk to Copilot, have it respond, show me the response. Okay, I ask my next question. They actually included an interrupt in here too, so I can say, oh, wait a minute, do this instead. It'll adjust to that. All powered by Work IQ in the background. So again, as Brian said, a little more of a branding thing at some levels, but it's leveraging all of the Copilot interactions that are happening across my M365 workspace and that. And then really cool thing is the Copilot in Outlook here. So now I've got Copilot built into Outlook, so I can do some quick summaries and things there and within throughout the day. Again, Work IQ in the background of all this, the kind of intelligent layer powering all of M365 Copilot and agents there. And with that, they actually introduced 3 new Work IQ agents, one being the Workforce Insight agents, which allows leaders to say, okay, who all is my organization? How long has this person been here, that, and just very quickly be able to ask questions, get answers on the enterprise as a whole. People agent similarly allows anybody to say, okay, I need to find somebody with this skill set, particularly in larger organizations, very beneficial. I would say, hey, I need somebody that understands this, and then get some assistance with, okay, how might I be able to connect with that person? And then finally, the learning agent, where it's taking that kind of Viva learning thing into a whole another level where you're applying AI to it and being able to create micro-learning experiences. Hey, you might want to learn how to do this based on things that it's learning about as you're interacting with it. But it also can be curated, so you can actually say that the organization can say, hey, I really want to drive people to be able to develop AI skills or be able to this kind of skill, and be able to have that controlled within there, so that as it's creating these, it's learning how you learn and how to things you might want to be taught, that you actually can have that driven a little bit from the organization too. It's not so open-ended. So
hey, we had a couple of really good questions, so I'm going to pause here for a second. Tom asked in the chat here, if agents are watching everything, does this mean that everything is going into the cloud? And I made the point here in the chat, I kind of responded, but I'd like to get your perspective too, Joe. My response was not in the Microsoft ecosystem. So as long as you have Purview, protecting your data, your workstations, and even third-party agents and other, aspects, other, third-party like AI systems, as long as you have Purview and M365 like in your tenant, you're okay. So do you want to add anything else to that?
Yeah, no, it doesn't. So it doesn't necessarily mean that everything's going to the cloud. It does. So again, Purview will provide protections on the data. So just because anything that does go to the cloud doesn't mean it gets surfaced to everybody else either, right? And that's one of the things. Agent 365 Purview helps provide a lot of controls on. Microsoft had that in there already. But yeah, no, it's picking up aspects of things that you're doing, but it stays scoped to you, as opposed to being then used to train and that data being used elsewhere. Microsoft's very, very cautious about that. Your data is your data down to the individual layer. So,
and Roberto asked a similar question. He said, was there any conversation regarding Windows Copilot in the enterprise data protections. So, and I think we've got some slides on that. So I want to maybe table that conversation for a little bit, but keep posting the questions. Love it. Love to see the interactions.
Yeah, please, by all means, give us a question. Like we said, as we're going, we got a lot of content to cover, so some of these we'll come back to at the end. But yeah, no, thank you. Appreciate that, everybody. So next one, the sales development agent. Very quickly, there is a pre-built agent that can actually act as an autonomous sales person of sorts that will research, qualify, and engage leads for you. It'll tie in with Dynamics 365 or Salesforce, is connected to Agent 365, so this is a managed tool. But you could set this out to say, okay, I want to start a marketing campaign and start engaging with these types of contacts, and it'll kind of leverage the data you already have in Dynamics 365 or Salesforce and be able to start driving automated, campaigns that way, and things like that. So could be a really interesting development going forward. So with that, I'm going to handle this over to my partner in crime, Brian, and let him talk about kind of the maker side of things a little more, if you want, Brian.
Yeah, we're going to sprinkle in a little bit. You've been talking a lot. You need to get a drink of water. So one of the things that came up was this agent creation, and we've been hearing a lot about vibe coding, in the developer community, and they're bringing that kind of vibe coding experience into the Power Platform. So this isn't necessarily huge new, and something that one of my coworkers and I were talking about a little earlier today. Not everything that's new being talked about at Ignite is brand new. This plan experience was actually released at Microsoft Build earlier this year. And so you see some of the stuff where it kind of gets trickled out in Microsoft Build and it gets formalized in Ignite. So what they did is they rolled out this plan, and it's super cool. Let's build this, together. You type in what you want. And in this case, I said I wanted to have an app that's going to track, the fish that I catch on Lake Michigan. So, and it goes through and it builds this stuff out. It actually takes the prompt that you write, what the problem is that you're trying to solve, and builds out a plan of how it's going to build that, and builds requirements. And you've got all these different agents that help it orchestrate how it's going to build it out, how it's going to serialize the data in Dataverse, how it's going to build out the logical workflows and all that kind of stuff. So super cool. If you want to try this out, it was working in the Power Platform under plans. And now you can go to vibe.powerapps.com and you can play around with this too at that spot. So definitely a cool one. And then what do we have next? We had Power Apps and MCP. So MCP is getting a lot of attention. The Model Context Protocol is a way for you to be able to access tools, through natural language, kind of interface. And so you've been able to build Copilot agents, or just agents in general in Copilot Studio, and throw MCP over the top of it. Now what they're doing is they're taking your Power Apps and saying, let's throw a layer of MCP over the top of that. And the cool part about that is that you can say things like, hey, I've got this agent. Hey, can you just log this fish that I just caught? And since it knows about this app that I built, it's going to go in and it's going to autofill and be able to perform the actions, in the Power App as well. So I think that's a really cool, next level, being able to bring in that MCP, workflow into things, and we'll see where that goes. And then you wanted to talk a little bit more about Agent 365?
Yeah, sure. So, Agent 365, really this gets into, as I'm building out, agents, and I've got, expansive, use of Copilot within the organization. Agent 365 provides a centralized view and management platform of the agent activity across the organization. Again, tied in with Microsoft 365. So as I'm managing my users and what they're doing within that platform already, I can be managing the agents that are being surfaced to everybody see. The inventory of agents that are out there, have a number of active users that are in there, the different platforms that are there, but also provide some deeper management capabilities in the back end, and then ultimately ties over into Purview, so that I'm able to handle some of the data control, some of the things you're asking about earlier, that we're able to provide control of where the data is flowing inside of there, and be able to put a management construct around all of the AI and agent activity that's happening within my organization. Very, very needed an enhancement here, and very, very exciting. So
Yeah, and so how
Brian.
that's working under the covers, and you bring up the control plane next, but this kind of like ties together, right? So we've got the Agent 365. We're assigning an Entra ID. It essentially becomes,
Yep.
a virtual user within your ecosystem, and then that gives you the opportunity to really manage it, as if it was a user. So I can set permissions and give it access to Teams channels, and say, I'm not going to give you access to these other things, and treat it like almost like a first-class citizen. So, if we go on to, talk about the Foundry control plane, it's a lot of those same kind of ideas, but, for what's being built in the Microsoft Foundry, it's going to be kind of hard to like get all the new names that they're calling everything. But so AI Foundry basically has its own management studio as well now, and that's the Foundry control plane. So that gives you visibility into all the different agents that are deployed in your Azure ecosystem through Microsoft Foundry. It connects the development and operations experience together, so that you can gain insights and have visibility into what's going on with all these different agents that are controlling things within your ecosystem. Manage the identity and access just like you do in the 365, Agent 365, and then have cost management, because that's something that's sort of desperately needed right now, is understanding like not just the usage of it, but like in Foundry, like that's consumption based. It's a lot different than an agent in 365, where it's just like, really micro token, kind of experience. You can really blow some like big numbers up in Foundry. So that cost and usage management is super important. And then, so the other thing that's really cool, moving on a little bit, is like the Foundry MCP tools that are available. So just like all these different MCP tools that are being exposed in your Copilot Studio environments, Foundry is starting to bake a lot of these like MCP tools like directly into the platform, giving your agents access to a bunch of other like, Cosmos DB, you see a whole list. I mean, there's hundreds and hundreds of them, in there. So again, just a maturity level. People are starting to build these kind of MCP tooling and tools, and expose those in like third-party open source, ecosystems, and that's bring everything together. So next announcement that they were talking about was a big announcement was like this, the Foundry model router. And then this actually is another one of those things that came out in Microsoft Build, but it matured quite a bit. So on the left side of the screen, what you're seeing is basically the different versions of the model router that are available today. And that table kind of gives you a like if you were to like zoom into it and really look into it deeper, is just the growing number of models that it can route to as it expands. So right now, if you're using the latest version of Foundry Model Router, it's going to go and figure out what the best, when you type in a prompt into a model router, it's going to figure out what's the best model to answer this question, and then it's going to make that call. So if you need a deep thinking, a reasoning model, if you need something that's really heavy in the code base, if you need something that's going to, all the different types of use cases, it knows how to switch between them. So OpenAI, Grok, Claude, these are all part of the model router. And broadly speaking, something that I've been super impressed with in the Microsoft ecosystem is just their openness to work with these other, AI foundation models. So very excited to see this grow. over the course of the year, you're going to see Foundry model router get a little bit more expand to quite a different bunch of different use cases. And then we've got the Foundry agent service. So this is part of the ecosystem that they're developing, and as it kind of matures a little bit, it goes back to that control plane that we were talking about before, but managing the orchestration of the agents, managing the different threads, so it's like more on the developer, like visibility, how the agents are actually working from a technical level, and then the multi-agent kind of orchestration, giving you a control plane or a management area to be able to work through those types of things as well. I think I saw a question hop up in the chat here. Was there? How does the licensing work with agents? Well, Robert, that's a great question. I will take well, I guess I'd want to know a little bit more about what you meant, but go for it. You start.
Maybe if I could just hop in on that one real quick, let you get a drink. So it depends on, there's the kind of the Copilot side of that, right? And so you have, Copilot licensing where that applies. With the rest of the agents, you're really talking more of, frequently those get into, consumption models. But the nice thing when we're talking about the, model context protocol and that, I may have other agents that you're buying, that you're going to have packaged, productized agents here that can get tied in with that as well. And so there's going to be kind of three different versions of that. There's, kind of those licensed, the Copilot thing and everything that provides you. You'll have kind of those packaged AI agents that are out there from a host of different providers. And then you'll have kind of those that you're building yourselves. A lot of that's driven based on the consumption of underlying resources. That's kind of more the Azure model there.
Yeah, Robert, you clarified. I don't actually know the answer to this, so I'm going to speculate. So he asked if they're treated as users, as a user license, and it's more like an app registration, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not eating up a user license.
No, and the agent ID doesn't require a license for that either. So, and that's really the kind of the foundation of treating that way. Yeah. Thanks, Robert.
Yeah, and that's a great question. I was pretty sure it was more like an app registration equivalence, from a licensing perspective. But all right, well, let's talk a little bit about Foundry IQ. So Foundry IQ has kind of a specific meaning in rather than like this generalistic like IQ conversation in the Microsoft ecosystem. So when we talk about Foundry IQ, what we're really talking about is intelligent RAG systems, retrieval augmented, type of systems that people are building that grounded in some of my technical manuals or my HR documents. This is a service, more type of offering rather than going in and having to custom build it. So on the IQ front, what it does is it takes all this information, these knowledge sources, and it brings it together. And it not just builds out a vector store for this information, but it actually tries to understand what it means. And that's really the next level of what the work IQ, we're going to talk about Fabric IQ, Foundry IQ. It's not just building a semantic model, it's also putting reasoning into that semantic model and understanding about it and pulling all the different types of things together. So with Foundry IQ, it's not just the data that you're throwing in there, my manuals or whatever else, but it's looking at all the other context of the individual and the agent and bringing it together to prepare something that's going to be meaningful. It's super cool. And then let's see. So Copilot Studio in evals. Oh yeah, this is like, I was waiting for this to come out at some point. And I've been talking to my teams, my engineering teams about this quite a bit. And, evals have really crept into the conversation around agents and AI, over the course of the last year. Not that it's a new concept, but like its importance has really started to come into play when we first started building these chatbots and these agents, like everybody was like, this is cool. Let's go ahead and throw a bunch of stuff at it. Let's figure it out later. And people are like, this doesn't make any sense. These answers are wrong and nobody's keeping track of it. And it's like, well, you just have to have an army of people that ask a bunch of questions. And that's not sustainable, as we start to build momentum in the enterprise world. And so evals are kind of a solution to this in like the AI world where you create these test cases or you create these evaluations, like, is this a good answer or not? And it's not like code where it's like, the answer has to be red, or red is the only correct answer. It's, this is natural language. So there's nuances to it. And so this is basically a way for you in Copilot Studio to create evals and evaluate the agents that you're building in kind of a low code way. So this is absolutely critical, for enterprise adoption, and something that a lot of organizations have been asking for, for the last year. So I'm excited about this a lot. And then this next thing that that I want to talk about, this is actually really cool. So MCP, bridging the gap between like your Microsoft Windows device, MCP, and the agents that the makers are building, so super cool. When I talked about the Power Apps being layered with MCP, that's really cool because I'm being able to build things and expose it to like agents and whatnot. Now, one thing that we haven't been able to do is say something like, take this file and move it over here, or I want you to delete this, find these files and delete these things. Just talk to your computer to help you like do some work. And so there's MCP layers that are being thrown over the top of certain tooling within your device. I'm trying to think exactly which two are out there right now, but I think it's the File Explorer is getting an MCP layer over the top of it, and there's one other one too. That's getting that they're rolling out right now. But with that kind of like power comes like a ton of responsibility, right? So I as a maker can now build and deploy things that have an MCP protocol and deploy it to your computer through the Windows Marketplace. But I have to enable those things you see down in the bottom corner. So I've got to like go onto my computer and say, yeah, I'm going to allow this kind of access. And then just like on your phone, like when, at least Android does a really good job about this. I want to have access to like your photos and like I install this app and it wants to access my photos, prompts me. It says, hey, this application wants to do this thing. Are you okay with that? So they put that layer of security into it. And this is going to be super powerful. And you're going to see a ton of momentum in the marketplace around this as people want to just be able to speak to their computer and have it do things for them. That's how we're doing on time. I think we're doing okay.
We're all right. We're all right.
Yeah. All right. Windows 365 for agents. You go.
Okay. Yeah. So along with what Brian was just talking about with being able to have the model context protocol on the Windows devices, now I actually have this one of the Windows 365 enhancements that's come out where I can have Windows 365 built just for agents. So I can construct a virtual environment that's agent driven, and there's a couple different ways this will manifest. One, I can have a AI enabled Windows 365 machine for a desktop for different use cases, but I also can then use this for app delivery, and that's kind of one of the other things that's coming with Windows 365, being able to deliver cloud apps through Windows 365. So now I can have a Windows-based app that's then delivered as an agent, and it can take all of the capabilities that would be built into a Windows environment and be able to surface that for different purposes. So really, really cool kind of platform construct for other ways to deliver agents out into the enterprise. So then I'll talk about this too. So we have then GitHub and Defender for Cloud and the integration between those two environments. So Defender for Cloud is going to be and has been on its way this way, is going to be kind of the one of the central constructs for controlling AI within the environment. Here, I'm able to tie that directly in with GitHub, so that I'm able to see different data security risks, be able to see other cyber threats, and into what I'm constructing and building within GitHub directly. So very, very powerful integration. Just expands, again, what all you can do within the broader Microsoft security portfolio. So pretty exciting stuff. All right. So as we continue to talk about AI, we're actually taking a little bit here. Let's talk about kind of more Azure and kind of the admin experience here too. One cool thing, which again, this is one of the few non-AI things that we're talking about today, is they've now brought in managed instance onto the Azure App Service. So what this does is provides an easier way to migrate legacy, particularly .NET apps right now, but the expectation is this is going to expand beyond just .NET apps, so I can more readily migrate my legacy .NET apps into Azure and bring them straight into the Azure App Service and all the scaling and networking security capabilities therein. I can do this because now I can have the kind of registry adaptations allowed for certain configuration scripts. I can mount drives in there, so if I have an app that's referring to a G drive, I can create a G drive inside of the app service and be able to leverage things that way. So it allows me to migrate these apps without having to do as much of the code rewrite, and possibly even eliminating in a lot of cases. So really starts making the app migration easier. The other idea here is that now, since I'm in the app service, I can modernize those apps more readily, and so it makes that kind of update. And as I go to modernize these, it allows for easier transition that way too. So really cool enhancement there to help continue migrating things. This is one thing I'm super excited about. This, again, one of my personal top 5 ones. It's in preview right now, but the Azure Copilot agents. So similar to the security Copilot, I now have these agents available within Azure, and they can do a host of different things. Like being able to say, okay, some of the example of the prompts here is I can say, okay, can you assess these on-prem apps and recommend the best Azure modernization approach? It will then come back to you with hey, this one should just be refactored. This one, you're going to have to recode this and modernize this, and be able to provide you insights into, okay, what's going to be the best way to move forward here, and go and do something more specific, like, hey, can you deploy a Python Flask app with Postgres SQL backend and tying key vault and enable monitoring with application insights, and it will do that for you, right? So it'll take care of performing the tasks required to do that. You can say, hey, I've got an alert. Can you help me investigate this alert? And we'll go through and drive through and provide the information it has off Azure Monitor and some of the other services in the back end, and be able to surface that to you. Be able to show my top cost saving opportunities. So when I get an optimization of this a little bit, can analyze your Azure environment and say, hey, are there applications for reserved instance here? Or there's things you should be monitoring. Hey, there's not activity on this. Maybe you should turn this down at certain times, and be able to do things like that. So host of different things that are going to be possible across a broad variety of areas within the full life cycle within Azure.
And I think what's cool about this, Joe, is that this is kind of like a bunch of different agents that have been out in the Azure platform, in little releases, dribbles here and there, and it's kind of bring it all together. I mean, I remember, I think it was 2 years ago, Azure Copilot, or Azure, I think they called it Azure Copilot, was out there, but it was very limited in what you could do.
Right.
And then you had the SRE agent that came out,
right.
And you had all these other agents, and now it's kind of like bringing, everything kind of into like a more coherent kind of like delivery method.
Absolutely, absolutely, and kind of standardizing how this is deployed across the environment too. So it's not this agent over here, and you got to just use it, operate within this, and then this one over here. It's more of a broader framework for using that throughout your Azure management experience. So very, very cool stuff. Um, Also have Copilot admin agents outside of Azure for SharePoint and Teams that are available in preview right now. So I can perform a broad variety of tasks, be able to search across sites, capture information through there and perform administrative tasks, again, using Copilot to be able to drive that in the admin experience for SharePoint and Teams as well. So very good. Exciting things coming in that. Again, Copilot all over, whether that's admin for SharePoint and Teams, Azure, and then we'll talk about security a little later. But before that, let's talk a little bit about Fabric and data services, Brian, if you want to take that.
So a lot of cool things are happening in the Fabric ecosystem, and you've got the Fabric databases that have been trickling out in different release cycles and stages. You've got, I mentioned before, one of my favorite announcements was the Azure DocumentDB, Horizon DB, so Postgres. I think there's a company or two that's going to be disappointed to see that kind of coming out because their business model is going to go away, and then the SQL Server, going into GA. So I think there's a lot of really cool stuff coming out. But generally speaking, what we're seeing in the Fabric ecosystem is it was designed as an analytics platform first, and being able to put your operational data and run workloads in there, like run transactional applications and have that kind of like that system built into the Fabric ecosystem wasn't a play that they wanted to make in the beginning. And over the course of the last year and a half, you started to see them roll out these different data services that could live natively inside of the ecosystem, and then be part of that natural analytics platform as well. And I think where the synergy here is that you're going to see that all this data becomes accessible through Fabric IQ and synthesized together, in a way that makes sense. So on the Fabric IQ, what we're really talking about is understanding your ontology of what it is that's in all these different data systems and how to bring it all together. So it gives you the tooling to be able to like map what these entity relationships mean, not just like, a person is a part of a group or a membership is part of a group or something like that, but really understand what that actually means, from a semantic, aspect. And then building in the governance and the trust, between these different data sources and like who's being able to access and push data into it is going to be important. And if you've heard of, some people on this call might not be like super technical, but when you think of what it's really doing is it's kind of building a graph, like, the Microsoft graph that connects all the different documents and data and things that you have. It's building a graph, inside of all these different data elements in the Fabric IQ. So I'm excited to be able to play with this. This is a preview, I think. It's being limited rollouts. It's going to be, it's going to be some time before I probably have a chance to play with it. But I'm excited. I'm excited to see where this is going to go. It's going to be impactful. So let's talk a little bit about the Fabric databases. So really, we're talking about when we say Fabric databases, are SQL databases and Cosmos DB databases. And so being able to natively deploy these things without having to go and create a resource group in Azure and say, I want to deploy a SQL database, I want to deploy a Cosmos DB, you can just go right into Fabric and you can deploy these. This isn't super new. It was these things came out at Build, like I mentioned before. But now they're generally available, and so they've been elevated to a first-class citizen. I've used them a little bit, and the use cases are a little bit like nuanced, and like when you would use it in one environment or another, you lose a little bit of the fine-grained control for a nerd like me that wants to build stuff and have a lot of control. And then the pricing is more, it's kind of built into your Fabric, capacity rather than having, fine-grained control of my consumption type of, inside of like the Azure control. So look, there are some trade-offs here. But when you think about bringing it into that Fabric IQ system, now it starts to make sense. Like, why would I actually go through this rather than deploying Cosmos DB on my own? Let's go on and talk a little bit deeper about the Azure DocumentDB. DocumentDB, this is open source. It's not anything new. It's, Cosmos has been out there. It's, ability to have all this like non-relation, NoSQL, information. But there wasn't a really great like solution for this in Azure. And now that we have this generally available, I think it's going to be a game changer, because if you want to do vector data, you kind of have like a limited number of choices. You're not going to do SQL database, but you could. I mean, technically they added that, but it doesn't perform like super awesome. You would use Cosmos DB. Like, that's what you do, because it was really super performant, and it does a really, really good job. And but it's really, really expensive. That's not. It's made for real low latency, very geographical distributed, sources. DocumentDB allows you to get that same level of performance as you would like in a MongoDB or Cosmos DB, but not have to pay for that oversized, overstuffed infrastructure. And so I feel like this is probably going to replace Cosmos DB in the next year or two as like the standard out of the box. I want to build an AI system for developers. I see you shaking your head, nodding your head, I should say, Joe. I think you probably saw those tea leaves too, right?
No, very exciting. I think it's great that they're adapting.
Yeah, and so Horizon DB is similar. I've noticed a lot of developers have been migrating into the Postgres, environment. They like that open source, aspect of it. They like, the cost, kind of trade-off of it. And there was this really cool company that I was talking to at Build that actually had a service like deploying Postgres and being able to scale it and auto scale and deploy it. That's the company I was referring to, because they're, this is basically putting them out of business, I would say, to a certain degree, because that's what Azure's bringing to the equation now. You can deploy Postgres in more of a managed, sort of instance, capability, be able to do all the, auto scaling for you and not have to worry about that infrastructure. Because I don't know, as a, .NET developer growing up in the ecosystem, wasn't like my big, Postgres was never like, my big thing. But I know a lot of, startups like to use it, and it's really gotten a lot of traction in the developer circles and ecosystem. So looking forward to that. And then we've got some stuff to talk about security and governance.
Yeah.
And we are running out of time, so we're
gonna fly through some things here. So again, another top 5 item is the security Copilot, right? So along with kind of the Azure Copilot, you had bits of this before. Security Copilot's really expanded, gone out to a broader portion of the portfolio. It's gotten into Entra, it's gotten into Intune. Originally, this was kind of driven off of what you had in Defender and Sentinel, and now I can use this to actually make changes to conditional access policies, do access reviews, look at your device lifecycle, ask device lifecycle questions of it. So really, really powerful. It's included with all M365 subscriptions. For anyone that was using Sentinel already, it's going to be enabled, and then for anyone that wasn't, you'll get notified about that's coming, and it is tied with the broader enterprise knowledge platform there. So we can make more intelligent decisions. Another big security thing is the baseline security mode within Microsoft 365. So quick dashboard. They had versions of this before, but this one takes it kind of a very core level and says, hey, here's some major security concerns. So a lot of them have to do with open admin accounts within Entra. ActiveX controls within certain aspects, things like that that you want to make sure you're dealing with. And so it'll go through, analyze your environment to be able to provide a quick view of that and allow you to to protect against those things where you need to. Defender Unified Posture Management. So a lot of the AI things we talk about Agent 365, but also within Defender, we've expanded posture management to include more and more of the AI tool set and be able to provide for controls over what's happening with different agents that I have running in environments, control for certain threats, and be able to manage how I want to allow users, what I'm going to allow them to do and not do inside of there. In addition, I have the broader security dashboard also tied in with Defender that allows me to see, okay, here's all the AI agents I have out there, be able to see some things on use, be able to see some of the prompts that are coming across there, and be able to have that all in one place. I can even filter down by whether those are AI Foundry apps, Studio apps, as well as anything else that I have running in there, and be able to see that in a single pane of glass, which is nice. Sentinel, it continues to expand. There's been integrations into other platforms. There's enhancements with bringing threat intelligence into there as they continue to integrate those platforms, be able to bring proactive responses to those inside of there. New enhancements to the threat hunting agent there, so I can leverage Copilot in here. Again, that's part of Security Copilot. Be able to tie in with what I'm finding those threats and be able to hunt those down as I'm showing some of the advanced hunting things here. There are also some pre-built HIPAA and GDPR compliance solutions into this, so it'll analyze the environment, see some of those things that might put you at risk for different compliance. It's starting with HIPAA and GDPR, and expect that to expand beyond that. Another one of my big top 5 ones is Purview with Agent 365. So aside from Defender and its view of AI activity, Purview here, I can take a look and see, okay, between AI observability, being able to see, again, the agents used, but really driving down even to, okay, what prompts are there, what data is flowing through these agents, and being able to put controls on there with having DLP and information protection extended into agents even further now, so that those sensitivity labels and information protection policies and DLP policies will work against agents along with all the other vectors that I'm concerning myself with there. Often for expanded governance, and does, as Brian alluded to earlier, ties in with Foundry as well. Another interesting piece, and this kind of ties in with some of the enhancements with Windows 365 and Intune, is, again, not AI related, is there's a new enhancement here for Intune MAM where I can now control browser experiences on devices that I'm not managing or maybe managed by other parties. So great for contractor use cases and some of those kind of things. Maybe you can see this used in some M&A activities too, where I now can manage the browser instances of that as I'm sharing, maybe applications that way or sharing information, being able to control the flow of information there, even if I'm not managing the device myself explicitly. Again, Windows 365, and Azure Virtual Desktop, there's been a few enhancements there. Intune continues to expand its management capabilities so that really can be the central management plane for all of your devices. Windows 11, you have cloud rebuild capabilities which are in, so I can actually rebuild a Windows 11 desktop instance remotely, through the cloud rebuild, and then the Windows 365 enhancements, where one, being able to have the AI-enabled cloud PCs, the Windows 365 for agents. But also then I thought, Windows 365 Cloud Apps was interesting. And now I have the ability to just surface apps. I don't have to surface a whole desktop through the Windows 365 construct, which I would expect the economics of that to be a little more palatable for certain use cases where I don't need a full desktop, but I do need to provide them this app. And I'm able to do that using the fully baked Windows 365 environment, so I don't have to spin up and manage that outside of that. And then also being able to have external identities for Windows 365 and AVD. So now I can provide those Windows 365 or Azure Virtual Desktop environments to, again, contractors or people outside of the organization. Again, as we're talking about, some of those organizations were going through M&A activity and/or we've got separate, or is that all companies have everyone baked together? Now I can start centralizing that and providing access to applications or different information services, even if they're not tied in with my central identity there as well, and be able to let them operate as they are. It just makes it a little more natural workflow that way. So covered a lot of ground here today. We are at time. And we are at the end of our tour of what we
literally got it in.
Ignite, yes. Yes, total be fast paced. Again, there's a lot more here. Brian and I would love to talk to you in more depth if any of you would care to. So Brian has his LinkedIn here. We have our emails at the front end. Please reach out to us. We'd love to schedule time to talk to you about any of these announcements.
Jump to the next slide really quick, because just to make sure, I know that Paige dropped in a link here. Please fill out the survey. Your feedback is an absolute gift. Tell us what you like, what you didn't like about what you heard today. And then, if you are looking to connect with us on LinkedIn, love to chit chat, about anything that might be happening in the tech community. Thanks a lot for your time, and looking forward to hearing from you.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Hope you all have a great day, and look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.